Epic's Fallout has potentially hit consoles. THQ Nordic have even sparked off rumors of low Epic Store sales, and once more Riot employees threaten to escalate the situation after their demands have not been met. All of that and more in today's roundup. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Roundup, the twice-weekly show in which we cover the wild happenings of the video game industry. We have a lot to cover today with what I teased in the intro, plus a little bit more with GOG's attempt to solve the video game launcher problem. Anyway, let's kick things off with exclusivity. So, Ancestors: The Humankind Odyssey now has its release dates for PC and for console. Seems normal, right? But we've since learned something rather interesting. It's coming to consoles 4 months after its release on the Epic Games Store. Now, the publisher, Private Division, offered up a reason for this in their recent press release, saying, "As partners, we support Panache, the developer, in taking their time to ensure all versions of Ancestors: The Humankind Odyssey deliver the standard of polish upon release that the team has set for themselves." So as you can see, the official reason is that they want extra time to ensure that the console versions are up to par. And as much as I think many people would love to believe that Epic are strong-arming them or paying them to secure exclusivity even over consoles, this thing seems to be entirely reasonable and above board. Being real. Now, to assert this, the press release goes out of its way to point out that the game is an Epic Game Store exclusive for 1 year on PC, and I don't think either publisher or developer has anything to gain by lying about that. There's also the fact that porting to console actually does take a lot of time, not least because of the administrative process for consoles and the higher standards of quality and stability and testing that are enforced by the console manufacturers, I mean, at least normally. So, was this enough to assuage concerns over Epic's involvement with the release date? Well, it's kind of hard to say. As we all know, store and platform exclusivity on PC is it's a negative for the customer most of the time. Adding consoles to that would of course bring another angle to it entirely. If an exclusivity deal was expanding to denying or delaying console launches, then that's another element of platform choice that would be removed, which clearly is a fear that people have based on Epic's actions. Again, exclusivity deals, they have been part of the games industry for years, but there's a crucial point to make. Most high-profile exclusives are indeed first-party or are enabled by funding from the exclusive partner, drawing users to their platform. Outside of those examples, though, it's usually not in the consumer or developer's favor that much if they're unable to make use of the platforms that are available to them. So I think there are legitimate fears here, but I also do think in this case that the reasoning from the publisher is legitimate. And I don't think that Epic have delayed the console release. I actually don't think that's the case. That said, of course, I'm all for scrutiny on Epic. But that's not all, actually, on Epic today. In a Q&A after THQ Nordic's financial report, CEO Lars Wingefors was asked about Metro Exodus' sales. Now, first of all, he said that physical sales met expectations while digital exceeded expectations, and that it was the largest launch in company history. Now, on the topic of platforms, he said the, quote, absolute majority of revenue has been from the PS4 and the Xbox One, but he said nothing of the PC performance. He was then later asked if they were happy with the Epic Games Store exclusive performance of Exodus, and he dodged the question by saying they are satisfied with digital platform revenue. And initially, you think this could only mean one thing, based on how EM delivered the answer in the Q&A, that Metro Exodus, despite Epic's claims of selling 2.5x as many as Metro Last Light did in Steam, has not done exceptionally well. That's what you would say. Now, he didn't outright grimace when the question was asked, but he did take his time, and he quickly brought the answer around to how digital is exceeding expectations on all platforms. Now, given how much more of the sale price goes to the publisher digitally, especially on the Epic Games Store with its honestly rather great 88-12 split, that does make sense. Saying that, the Xbox One and the PS4 together at a 70% cut for digital, or closer to a 50% cut for physical, still were able to beat out revenue from Epic at an 88% cut. That actually means that in order to achieve an absolute majority, console would have needed to have sold 25 to 30% more units, if not more than that. If Lars's sweeping statements are accurate, Metro Exodus sold worse on PC than it could have, I would say, but that it maybe still did exceed their expectations, which is kind of funny. Now, this is speculation based on Lars's comments, which may have been worded inaccurately or were just sort of thought up quite quickly, especially in regards to the lack of clarity with unit sales versus publisher revenue. And this, of course, is a story that was picked up and spread around rapidly. But that's not the entire story, so don't go ringing the death knell for Epic just yet, because shortly after, Lars spoke to PC Games N to offer some more information on his statements. And like with his Q&A, he was very specifically worded. He said that the Epic Store has exceeded expectations in actual units for both Metro and Satisfactory, and that the store is the, quote, group's leading digital platform in terms of revenue generated by unit sales in the quarter ending March. Like is always the case with statements like this, you can learn a lot more by how something is said and how it's worded than what is actually said. What he means here is that Metro Exodus and Satisfactory individually sold more than expected, which is great for them, and that together they provided more revenue than any other digital platform's game sales. So my read on it is this: Metro Exodus and Satisfactory both sold pretty well in the Epic Games Store. However, the Metro series is beloved by PC gamers, with its past entries doing fantastically on the PC platform. If console was the majority of Metro revenue, even at 18 to 38% less revenue per sale, well, it can only mean a few things. On console, Exodus sold really, really well, or on Epic, it sold less than it would have on Steam. Which one is it? We just can't say based on the information that we've been given. Then the other thing that we also know is that Satisfactory sold well enough that Exodus and Satisfactory sales together on Epic made more revenue than console digital Exodus sales. It's clear that Epic is not a failure for THQ Nordic here, otherwise we would have heard that. However, what we've roughly sort of worked out here is that those games could have potentially sold a lot better in Steam. At least I would suspect that. But again, that's something that we really could have just assumed anyway. And that brings me back to the earlier point of platform freedom. If Metro sold more than expected on console because of heightened interest in the game, or even because they had an unexpected hit in their hands but were hamstrung by their Epic deal, well, it's easy to transfer that concept over to the indie game space. It's not likely, but platform exclusivity could go some way to damage the possibility of a breakout success. I'm thinking something like a Factorio or a Stardew Valley. Obviously, in many cases, making an exclusivity deal does make sense. It's a safe option for funding for your game that doesn't rely on pre-sales like Kickstarter does, and in this case also promises a larger cut from each sale. But seemingly, with that reduced risk can come reduced reward. Now, let's move over to the next topic, an update from Riot Games. Now, for a quick catch-up here, Riot employees were unhappy with their company culture, which was apparently rife with sexism and discrimination in general, just abusive sort of harassment behavior towards employees. They were unhappy with management's decisions, so they decided to stage a walkout after earlier promises were not met. After that walkout, Riot made some more promises and took some action, but didn't really give in to the core demands that the walkout employees had, and those demands were dropping the forced arbitration policy for employees taking legal action, including the current employees who are going through that. With them not seeing the action they wanted, those employees are now openly planning to escalate. They are circulating a petition around the employees of the company and plan to present to the board of directors, hoping that the board will be able to force action once spoken to personally. And I think this is a fair and hopefully effective step that employees are taking to resolve conflicts within their organization, and I think it's a fairly amicable way to proceed. Like I've said before, I hope this is looked towards by others in the industry who are displeased with their experiences and with their companies, and especially when it comes to the ever-present topic of crunch. It's a developing story, I'll be sure to follow up on it, but for now let's move on to the last bit of Riot news. Sources have revealed to Reuters that a mobile version of League of Legends is in the works. Now, that's interesting because it also came out via SuperData that LoL is currently dominating PC revenue, so it's fairly possible that those stories are going to kind of starve the core Riot story of Oxygen. I'd be interested to see if those sources leaked to Reuters with that intention to fill more positive Riot news out there. But again, all developing stories, I will follow up on them. Next up, we've got GOG Galaxy 2, which has been announced with the tagline, "All your games and friends in one place." With the PC games market growing and becoming more diverse, PC gamers are very vocal about their game libraries being spread out across multiple different platforms. There have been attempts to consolidate libraries into a single launcher in the past, but the story has mostly been the same. There are promising PC library replacers, but most of them lack some features, or maybe have usability issues, or not the greatest design. While Playknight is promising, it still does have some issues, and its dev team of one will struggle to keep up with what GOG can do. But there is a really large core problem here: the need that all launchers will have to get past the DRM of, say, Steam or the Epic Store. Now, this is something that could be worked on by GOG Galaxy. So, GOG Galaxy's launcher initially was a really good stab at being a library for your GOG games, but, it didn't really have any of the DRM management stuff because it wasn't necessary, because it's good old games. They didn't do that. They clearly understand, though, that here they need to kill two birds with one stone. They need to get more people to use their launcher so that those people can see the store, and then they also know that the wider PC gaming community does want a single launcher, one to rule them all, to access their entire library. So that's why they've announced Galaxy 2.0. They make some pretty wild claims here, to be honest with you, but if they think this is possible, then more power to them. They claim they'll be able to import all of a player's games from PC and consoles and organize them in one collection. You'll be able to launch any PC game that you own from Galaxy, regardless of platform. It's going to consolidate your friends lists. It will allow for cross-platform chat and seeing online statuses. Galaxy 2 will track your achievements for every platform as well. All of that along with features like cloud saving, multiplayer, matchmaking, and more, even some open source integrations. Really, it sounds like a dream come true in many ways. It might in some ways be too good to be true. GOG are overall one of the most consumer-friendly stores around, with DRM games, of course, being on offer. They also used to have a fair price package, which would see them eat the cost of regional pricing differences to make it fairer for their customers, which was a great thing to do, but they recently did end it, seemingly in favor of giving a larger cut to devs. And it is also worth noting that that was removed around the same time that they were, that they had to lay off about a dozen employees. So clearly there was a little bit of self-preservation going on there, which, I mean, is fair and reasonable. Personally, I would absolutely love to see Galaxy 2 be a fantastic product that solves the problems that PC gamers have. However, I'm trying not to get my hopes up too high. It's going to be an expensive endeavor. It'll be hard to pull off. It's going to take a ton of dev work, and there are just issues, right? Just thinking about the administrative headaches of working with every large publisher and console owner, I mean, that just seems kind of dizzying, and it does make me a bit doubtful about their chances of success. And I think a lot of the reason why is that working with GOG would be counter to the goals of most publishers, right? So they are publishers who will want people on their own platform. You know, they'll want people in Uplay. Looking at their own store where they get a higher, rev share, 100% if you're Ubisoft on Uplay. So, look, hopefully GOG are able to pull this off. If they do, it would be absolutely fantastic for consumers. But I suppose there's little incentive for the rest of the industry to play ball with GOG, even though GOG do seem to have, well, gamers' best interests in mind. So I wish them all the best with this, and I absolutely will do an in-depth video on Galaxy 2 if I get access to its closed beta, because it is definitely an exciting prospect for PC gamers. Having a unified library with metadata, that's something I've wanted for a long time. And that's just the tip of the Galaxy iceberg if their promises are to be believed. And then let's just finish off today with a quick Patreon Q&A from Aaron Customs, who asks if I will do retrospectives like what I do for World of Warcraft. So if you don't know, I also do a World of Warcraft channel. It's been my main gig for about 5 years. On there, I'll do a video like, the story of Wrath of the Lich King, right? And I'll be going through that entire World of Warcraft expansion. Usually they end up being like 40 minutes to an hour. So yeah, he asks, is there a chance I'll do that for other games? The answer is not right now, but absolutely it is something that I would love to do. In fact, it really, really is something I would love to do. Right now, we are in the mode of essentially growing this channel and growing our production, right? So what does that actually mean? Well, it's making the views bigger, making the subscriber count bigger, and at the same time, using the increased revenue from the channel growing and from the supporters on Patreon to hire up more staff. Like right now, we're soon going to be getting editor number 2. So basically, all those things like the retrospectives, I want to do them, but I want to do them really, really well. I want to do them right. And that is going to take more capability than we currently have on both the writing and the editing front. There will be a lot of research that'll go into videos like that. With the World of Warcraft retrospectives, like, I've been playing World of Warcraft, well, I mean, I haven't really been playing it much recently, which all the WoW people will know, but, you know, in the past, right, I played that game for years, so I just know everything like the back of my hand, which would mean that writing a retrospective on the history of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, yeah, I can do that with my eyes closed. Less so with, you know, say delving into a cancelled game project that has a really interesting development backstory. So actually, those things will probably happen when we have one more editor, but also one or two researchers. Because having a team, having multiple heads coming together and working on a thing like that, that's really what lets you get the quality. So, well, not just get the quality, like get the quality, but also with an acceptable timeline so that I can put out enough, you know, content. And because I actually do want to put out, you know, if I'm doing things like that, I'd like it to be at least, you know, monthly, but be on top of everything else that we're doing. And that actually is quite a lot of content. So there you go. That is my thoughts on retrospectives. Not right now, but absolutely I want to do them. Anyway, there you go. I think that'll do us for today. It's another pretty interesting period of time for the news, and I don't think it's one that's going to slow down anytime soon. I think today was particularly fun just trying to work out that Metro Exodus situation. There was a lot of stuff went out there, and it's just parsing the corporate speak that's always an endeavor and trying to work out what's really going on in between the lines. At any rate, though, stay tuned for more views behind the industry headlines. Let me know what you think about today's selection, and thank you very much for watching. And as always, I'll see you next time.